when I talk about that separation that we get with a separate ego, um, it comes with a lot of self-doubt, that sense of separation, because that little self is never good enough. My little self is never good enough. I'm never worth it enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not wise enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. There's, all those enoughs that we look at in Zen leaders, especially Zen leader 2, where because they trigger fears. And I think a lot of my early life ambitions, including being an astronaut, were driven around a sense of, how can I do enough? How can I be enough? How can I be worthy? How can I, right? And that same kind of need, I think, fuels a lot of ambitious or high need achievers, as they're called. That I think that really. But I think underlying all of it is this hunger for wholeness, for love, for connection, for that unity that is us at our best.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Dano, and welcome to Unknowingly Connected, a podcast for people open and curious by nature with specific interests in the human potential and the greater good. Twice a month, I interview professionals who have gathered their diverse passions or gifts to be in service of human leadership. You will hear from their journey and their techniques, crafted to be within everyone's reach, and explained from a scientific, body, mind, and spiritual perspective. It's all connected, and we might not even know it. Hi, today my guest is Ginny Whitelaw. Ginny is a biophysicist by training, a Zen master of Rinzai Zen, and a 5th degree black belt in Aikido, among others, as you will see. After having worked for 10 years at NASA, she created Focus Leadership and Zen Leadership, where she offers workshops for individuals and companies to develop their authentic global leadership. As one of my teachers, what I found amazing in Ginny is her dedication to people, to the point of spending her breakfast, lunches, and breaks with the participant of her workshops in order to help find the best in them. In this episode, you will hear about her journey, what is Zen leadership, how to find life purpose, and the concept in energy in our bodies. Good morning, Ginny.
Good morning, Stephanie.
Before we start, I wanted to share with you why I'm happy you're here for the first episode. And it's that I've done the Zen Leadership Program, so 1, 2, 3. And on the third Zen Leadership Workshop, I had the idea of the podcast. So that's why I'm really glad you're here for the first guest.
Thank you. I'm glad that something opened up in that series for you, because I think it's in that kind of training that things have opened up for me as well. So we have a connection there.
Absolutely. So let's start. I'm curious about all what you've done so far. So from the beginning, when I can see you had a lot of passions, and I think the first one was to be an astronaut.
That's right. That was just the big thing when I was a little girl. And I wanted that. It was just a huge dream of mine. I wrote NASA when I was 13 years old, and I said, what classes do I take in junior high school to best prepare me for my life as an astronaut? And they actually wrote back. And it was not a form letter, it was a real letter. They actually, because it said, it doesn't matter what you do at junior high school, but you should do science and math and in high school and college, and these are the things you should major in. And they gave me a whole list, like aeronautical engineering or physics, astrophysics, and I pinned that letter to my wall and followed it to the T. So it obviously took me into science, math, into physics, into biophysics in graduate school, and I did work for NASA for 10 years, going into senior management, not into space, as it turned out. It was very. Along that way, something else also happened, which was in college, I started training in martial arts. And in graduate school, that art morphed into Aikido. And my Aikido teacher said to me, if you ever want to be really good at this or reach the peak of your game in anything, you have to start training in Zen. And I trusted my teacher. So I said, I'm in, I'll start training in Zen. I didn't exactly understand what this was going to do for me, but I figured it would make me, quote, better at achieving my dreams, right? So I started training in Zen, and the physical training of it combined with the physical training of Aikido was really my early journey into embodiment. By the time I was a leader at NASA and I was integrating the space station program, I could see that this deep training in the body was going to be essential in the world of work, because I would go to work every day and I would watch how our tempers were so frayed, how we were trying to build beyond our budget. Everyone was arguing and wanting their way on this interface and do it, no, do it my way, no, my way. And the result was a kind of like whoever was loudest or the most bullying attitude in the room would prevail. And then I'd go to the dojo and I'd see a completely different way for people to be with one another and be in themselves, a more resilient, roll with the punches, lead energy, sense where things are going, And I said, we've got to bring this wholeness into the world of work. And around that time, NASA had put me into a leadership program, grooming me for like senior executive service in the government. And something completely different happened in that program, a little bit like your experience coming through Zen leader programs. Something in me was waking up saying, I really need to change the direction of my life. I want to be teaching leadership. I want to find out everything I can about leadership and put it together with everything I know about embodiment and this physical training from the dojo. And somehow it wouldn't let me go. And so that's really morphed into what became my new direction starting in the mid-90s, to teach a holistic form of leadership development, mind, body as one. And when I first started this, it was the most uncharacteristic risk I ever took. Up to that point, I'd done all the kind of things you'd expect, a studious, ambitious kid to do. But at that point, with exactly 2 days of work lined up for the rest of my life, I left NASA and went out on my own to form Focus Leadership. Years later, I also founded the Institute for Zen Leadership, where I could start bringing leaders into a dojo setting to do this kind of training, or into settings such as you joined us in. Yeah. And that pathway, what I found in it is each step of the way, the training itself was creating me as an instrument that could sense what was next to do. In other words, purpose manifests through how the training affected my physical body.
Yes, so we keep learning, I guess. I mean, you keep learning also by doing the work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as long as you live in a body, it's going to be changing, right?
Yes.
So as it changes, what it's capable of doing and what it resonates with, how it manifests the conditions around us. I mean, even look at what's going on this summer. It's always changing. So it's not like you get to a certain point and you go, I'm finished, I'm done. Or if you do get to that point, it becomes a point of sticking or stuckness, right?
Yeah. And you feel like changing anyway, I guess. Jeanne, I found curious that besides all the learning you've had, first you go through NASA and then suddenly you became curious. I mean, Aikido came to you, and then Zen. That's I've seen that you've learned
philosophy too. Yes,
philosophy, and also I know that you have a hidden gem, which is bodywork as well. So I'm a little bit curious about if you have something more that you know and you have on your list that we're not aware of.
Well, I think like many people, I really wanted to figure it out, right? I wanted to, what is going on? What is this about? Is it that we struggle and die? What's going on in this life? And I think Zen was one of the angles into that. As a young person, I lived very much in my mind, as I think many of us do. It's part of our natural maturing that mind sort of separates from the body at one stage of development so it can differentiate. That's part of how development happens. And then at another stage, it needs to reintegrate. But in that differentiated stage, I was very interested in philosophy and spirituality and religion, anything that would tell me from a mind point of view how to get it. And that's where the philosophy came in. The body work came in as a part of Aikido, a part of the training in Zen and in martial arts that is in my lineage, is how to heal people, how to use energy in a healing. And the body work, it was a wonderful system that came to us through the genius of Dub Lee initially, who had trained with Ida Rolf and Moshe Feldenkrais, and also one of my Zen teachers, Tanoi Roshi, and could put together this deep understanding of the body with a deep understanding of energy into a system that through 10 sessions could open up the body systematically. So sort of one thing would lead to another and could create a much better operating instrument. And that was something we brought into the dojo training, and I trained in some years ago. It's still a part of our dojo training today, and people like Alex Green and others have taken it, Chris Nakano are taking it much further into somatics work and TRE and other kinds of physical training that help healing. And it's a wonderful way to get rid of constrictions in the body and give us a sense of how we are knowingly and unknowingly. One thing gives the gateway to opening something else.
Absolutely. Let's go to the Zen Leadership Program, if that's okay with you. Actually, no idea about what I was going to. I just went for my gut and just jump in. And the first thing I remember is when you start the program is starting with the meditation. And I'm not really the best in meditation, to be honest, but there's few things that I find really specific for the Zen meditation that is not in other meditation that are more into relaxing or guiding meditation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is specific in Zen meditation that is not from in other meditation styles?
Yeah, in Zen meditation, we are intentionally cultivating a condition of total awareness at the same time. So it's that combination. So as you point out, it's not just the relaxation side, it's how to be completely in this moment and okay with it at the same time. And so that takes a deep kind of training of the senses. So for example, we keep our eyes open, 180-degree vision. A lot of people find that difficult. They say, it's much easier for me to meditate with my eyes shut. And I go, yes, of course it is, because sensory perception starts triggering chain reactions in us. But that's part of what we're training in Zen, is how to not get caught up in that so-called monkey mind of one thing leads to another and into my usual habit loops of thought. How can I just see, just as it is? How can I witness how my mind is working when those perceptions start kicking off? So part of the discomfort we're leaning into is being with ourself in that silent, still state. A lot of the reasons we have trouble, we all have trouble sitting still, is that we're people of action, right? Absolutely. We are people of action. And so in the daily distraction of things, there's so much that we don't really look at because there's something on our to-do list or there's another email that has arrived, right? Yeah. So it's easy to get pulled into it again and again and again. One of my friends called that work therapy yesterday. You know, she goes, yeah, my work therapy. I just work. You know? Or maybe it's play. But whatever it is, it's a great distraction. We take away that kind of stuff. So we simplify things down to where there's nowhere to run. Your senses are fully open. And then you're cultivating your breathing. And in our style of Zen, we're really developing breath deep in the lower abdomen, the area that in the Japanese martial arts is called Hara, H-A-R-A. And this is very intentional training for us, because to get the breath to drop that deeply in the body, everything through here has to relax. So it becomes sort of a journey through the tension of the body. I talked about body work earlier and how it opens up or readies the body for a different kind of condition. But what body workers understand is that a lot of tension, for example, gets held in the solar plexus. It's often considered sort of the seat of the ego, the local self, the I. And so it's easy for things to get kind of constricted there, or even tension in the throat. A lot of times in our training, as you may remember, we also do loud voice training because we're trying to blast through tension and constriction. A lot of people find they can't make a loud noise because something's very tight in here. So as we look at, especially at these junctions between head and heart, between heart and Hara, and open them up, we get this more integrated being. Our Zen training is very intentional about that. So as we change the physicality of the body, the way we resonate, meaning, and I'll use breath as an example of a fundamental vibration. Every, minute, how many times we breathe, how deep that breath comes, how it creates our voice, even as the voice, Stephanie, that I speak with you and all of you with right now. It's a different voice in me than the voice I had as an asthmatic child, which was much more like this. It was much more up in the upper body because I couldn't drop my breath. I was breathing many times a second. And is this the kind of signal you'd want to follow? You can feel the difference. So those signals, this is again one of the things I've really been working on in this last year around resonance. These physical signals come out of us as an instrument, as a physical, energetic instrument. And Zen training that we bring into our Zen leadership training is about honing that instrument so it can be Stephanie at her best, you at your best.
Perfect. You were talking about the energies. That is something you started, I guess, with your book, Move to Greatness, about the 4 essential energies. And in order for people to understand what we're talking about, I was thinking about doing a small game. Let me know if you're up for it.
Okay. A game.
A game. So basically what I've done is that I've written the 4 energies over there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking if I pick one of them and we do a small conversation for like a few seconds with this energy. So people can sense, hear if they listen to the podcast, or see us as well if they're watching it, and see if they notice something specific. You up for that?
I'm up for that.
So let's see the first one. Collaborator.
How the hell are you?
So how are you doing, Ginny?
I'm doing great. And it's wonderful to have this time with you.
Me too. What would you like to offer to the people by doing your work?
Oh, a sense of rhythm and fun and playfulness, a sense of renewal that we can get as we can sort of roll with the punches, right?
Yeah,
life can be hard. So it's good that you can get into a place where you can roll with it.
Yes, true. Great. I'm going to shake a little bit to go to the next one. And let's see what we've got. Driver. So Ginny, in 3 words, what is Zen for you?
Opening, freedom, love.
Great. And what can we get if we do the Zen leadership program?
Your true self.
Great. I'm going to go to the next one. That's a little bit, that's so quick to go to the driver. We get something really, really sharp.
Point.
And the point. Let's go to the next one. Visionary. So Ginny, what is your dream?
A world where people wake up and can connect with themselves, with the earth, with one another, and move through this pivotal time in human history in a way where it's good for human beings. This is a pivotal time. And when we look at the big picture and look at it even historically, something enormous is happening right now in human consciousness, in life on the planet, between its heating up, the technology, the fears we have and that are coming out around jobs, around racism, around coronavirus and health. This is all coming together. How we can lead through this time as our whole and connected selves. My vision is a world where that becomes into the mainstream, into the culture, that we don't tear ourselves apart.
True. True. Let's go to the next one, if you're okay with that. She's the organizer. This one I need to prepare a little bit more for some reason. Jeannie, can you tell me what is Zen for you? If I have to describe it to my mother-in-law, how could you describe what is Zen?
I would take it in a few steps. That first, I would want to know what your mother-in-law already understands about Zen, because it's important to start where people are, rather than just give them a formula. That sense of starting where people are. The next step is to add what's the next step for them. So if she thinks of Zen as a religion, I would start by saying it's physical. My experience of it is it's physical. And what's the next step for them? I'd ask, what are they curious about? And then the third part would be give them something helpful. Give them something helpful. So start with they are, find out what they know, and then what's the next thing that's helpful. In breaking things down into steps, sometimes we can move through an explanation that's not just a formula, but has a process that is truly useful for people.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And what are your projects within, let's say, 1 year?
What are my projects?
Yes.
Well, this year, I'm doing a webinar that is a project for the summer. We have also moved all of our programs for Zen Leadership online. So another project I have for the fall is how we have all of our online programs. We did some of those in the spring as well. I also have a project coming out in the form of a book called Resonate that comes out in October 13th is its launch date. So these are 3 projects very near and dear to me right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ginny, for playing with me. So what would be for you, how can you describe the essential energies now we've played with the 4 of them? How could you describe it for someone?
There are different ways of, it was different ways of playing our nervous system. And you could feel, even as we watched each other get into each one, how we would get big and broad for visionary, or attenuated focus for driver, or process-wise for organizer, or rhythmic for collaborator. These are ways that the flexor and extensor sides of our body, if you will, play with each other in terms of activation. So these have been known since the 1930s in the work of Josephine Rathbone. They were brought to me through the wonderful work of Betsy Wetzig, who was a dancer and choreographer and lived in her body, and recognized they weren't just patterns of movement, but patterns of temperament, that they related to personality. And then in our work, we have been able to show with Phoebe, the focus energy balance indicator, that these patterns correlate with the 4 dominant factors of human personality that are measured in other instruments as well. So they're a very easy and accessible way to look at personality as a personality test, but then make the link from mind to body so that we don't stop at the neck, that we actually can feel into the physicality of them, which gives us access. Because as we make things physical, you make them practicable. It's not just a flitting thought running through your head. You give yourself something you can work on. So if I wanted more access to driver, I could do sharp and focused things. If I wanted more access to organizer, I could do stepwise discipline things by the numbers and check them off my list when I'm done, right? I could play with the collaborator's rhythm. I could expand into visionary's bigness. By having it in the body, we can change the state of mind. And our research has shown that the physical movement alone is enough to induce the changes of state. And you change state enough and you change trait. You know, you start building pathways in the nervous system that become go-to ways that give us more access, more agility.
Absolutely. And what I love about that is that it's fairly intuitive. That even by seeing someone for the first time, the way they move, the way they talk, the way they present themselves, you can eventually sense which type of energy they have. And it's really great for communicating as well.
That's right. That's right.
For meeting people where they
we
are.
talk even like this. You know, we are making maps of each other. And if I feel Stephanie's energy, I can feel the pattern it's in. So
Absolutely.
as you feel Ginny's energy, you feel that. You know, it's so interesting that way. But it gives us almost a meta way to get a good read on people so that we can, as you say, meet them where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. I had another question that would be, why the Hara is important? Because you mentioned it before, and I know it's something that is described in a different way. Like in Zen, it's called Hara. In other places, it's called Chi, or in the chakras as well. So why this place in particular is important? Why we should focus there?
One of the practical physical reasons is that, again, when we can drop breath into Hara, we get the deepest, most stable breathing possible, because the lungs can't move themselves. They need some muscles to do the job for them. And the question is, which ones get the job? When the muscles that are high up in the chest are working, they have to work often and frequently, as I demonstrated earlier. But when the muscles deep in the abdomen get the job, they're moving the lungs from underneath, almost like creating a vacuum that sucks the breath right to the base, dispels it completely. And the result is a deep, slow frequency. And that helps us literally, as a state change, settle down, feel more grounded. If I just invite you right now to let a long, slow exhale down, as if it could just drip through the body, right through the Hara, right through the pelvic floor, right into the seat, the earth, whatever you're sitting on. That exhale triggers the relaxing part of the nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the longer we make the exhale, the more stable we become, and the more we are slowing down this fundamental frequency, which in turn is going to slow down rates of thought and allow more coherence between heart, Hara, and head. We can get ourselves to, in a sense, integrate. There's another reason I have found Hara so important. I mean, martial arts, you know, that's the seat of power. Anytime you train in martial arts, if you punch from up here in the shoulders, it's weak, it's, you know, pointless. But if you, you know, bring it from the center, you've got something going on. So you know it's very powerful. And in the chakra sense, these lower chakras are, you know, are associated with very primal things, you know, survival and sexuality and power, and you know, these are really primal powers, right? This is heavy stuff for the human being. In the human development, this part of the nervous system develops earliest, even before there's a sense of self. In other words, the enteric nervous system down in the gut, you know, 1 billion nerve cells, and the motor neurons that control our early walking movements are all kind of maturing, figuring it out, sorting it out, way before we're able to think and talk and color. You know, we start to walk before we start to talk. That gives us a clue about the kind of the bottom-up organization of this nervous system. And around the age of 2, we get a sense of self. And it comes with the onset of language and the learning of 2 very important words, which are, no, I don't want that, which means an ego boundary has formed and I don't want something to cross it. Or mine, you know, this is mine, because we start to get a sense of self in that. Now that's a good news, bad news story, because that sense of self is going to start differentiating. It's a key part of development. We'd be psychotic without it. And there's a phenomenon, there's a sense of separation that we're always trying to close between that self and the unity consciousness, or the unity connectedness that something in us remembers. What remembers it? It's the Hara. It's the part that in a sense happened before. So that's a bit metaphysical, but it captures for me what I have experienced in my own body, that when I can't figure things out here, I drop down here and just let the intuition come. And I have come to trust that my head mind may be the last to know, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, and I find really interesting and useful nowadays when there should be a lot of panicking. I've seen so many people with anxiety with what's going on. And personally, I find it really useful to go back to the meditation, something that I'm not always really, what can I say, do it on a regular basis. I find it really, really useful nowadays, more than ever, to be able to slow down and trust that something would happen. So the next thing I would like to talk about with you is resonate. So it's a big topic. And there's one thing I would like to see with you, if it's okay, is the concept of energy and frequencies. There's a lot of people that don't believe in energy. I've heard, like, recently when I talk about it, say there's no energy in the body. So how can you explain that to people, that there's, from scientific perspective, yet not too complex, why we do have energy in our body?
Why we do have energy? Well, as a physicist by training, I would, and interestingly, I worked in a high energy physics lab all through college because I was so interested at this boundary between energy and matter. I thought that's kind of that cusp where energy turns into matter. So what am I talking about? I mean, maybe we know Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, that energy and matter are actually related. I mean, you could think of matter as a very condensed form of energy. So what we find in these like high energy accelerators and what high energy physics studies is, under certain energetic condition, particles form. They sort of distill out, or a new configuration is possible that takes on the qualities of mass, and then we call it matter. It's so interesting because we think, and it makes sense because we grow up as material beings, and we start out as little kids, we're very literal and physical. We learn to count by touching our fingers, 1, 2, 3. It's hard for us to think in abstract terms. So matter is more physical and concrete than energy. And that's why some people might say, like, I understand matter because I can count on my finger, but I don't get this energy stuff. But let me try out this. And from a physics point of view, if it's not solid, like it's solid, if it's not liquid, like your blood, if it's not gas, like the air you're breathing, if it's not one of those 3 things, and we're talking about it, it's some form of energy. So if you think about it, what's thought? What is thought? What's an idea? It's an energetic form. Then I'd say the role of leadership is to turn ideas into things that matter. We're turning ideas, vision, imagination, creativity. Those are all energetic terms. Or if you think, Stephanie, about our conversation right now and the vibe of our relationship, that vibration is energy. If you think about a team climate or a family climate, what it's like to sit around your particular dinner table or in your house, that feeling is an energetic quality. What it's like to have a culture of a country. Why does Wales or England feel different than Texas? How is it that Saudi Arabia feels culturally different than Canada? these are energetic systems that are not material. It's hard to count them on your fingers, but they are fields that we vibrate with. How do we know we vibrate with them? Because we register it physically. And just think in your own experience as you listen to this, what it feels like to, for example, come home versus go into a strange place. Just feel what that is. Those are energetics. That's a field we're picking up that our nervous system recognizes. Oh, this is a familiar pattern. So there's a comfort that's generated here. So in a way, it's all energy. It's just that some energy is so dense that we call it matter. And it's like 10 to the 14th times faster vibrating than energy, but energy is characterized by vibration. Everyday life, the kinds of vibrations we're most familiar with and that we have the most senses to pick up directly resonate through our body, and vibrations of light. So if somebody says they don't believe in energy, every one of our senses is based in the perception of energy. And what we do with that energy is change the signal. We relay it and change it into things that create mental imagery that we put words around. Those are all energetic forms. We then give sound to that I'm now vibrating more air molecules with, so that those air molecules can vibrate in your ear, and your body, and resonate with you. So then the signal gets relayed. These are all energies. And what we know about resonance is it is a physical fact. It's how energy changes form. It's not a choice. It's not like, do I resonate or don't I resonate? Where we have choice is what we tune into, where we direct our attention, because we have a huge possibility space and a tiny attention space. Right? They say it's 126 bits of conscious attention. It takes about 60 bits per second to carry on a conversation. I've got a few extra bits that I can focus on, what's the temperature of the room or whatever. But it's kind of a discrepancy seeking machine. As long as everything's kind of humming along okay, I don't pay attention. So we have a huge possibility of what we could pay attention to, but we choose. And depending on what we choose, those are the things, that's the energy we're admitting into our system to vibrate with. So how we vibrate with it then has a lot to do with what we do with it. So that's one of the places where I'll say Zen really connects deeply into resonance, because Zen is changing the instrument we vibrate with. One of the examples you've maybe seen me use is something like this bell. This bell, if it's you or me, is an instrument. It's an instrument that can vibrate. And I can make this bell ring by tapping on it, right? I can make this bell ring by tapping on it. But if the instrument that I'm working with is full of tension, and it's full of trauma, and it's full of past habits, and it's full of all this stuff that's embodied in a kind of constricted, clogged up condition, then when life taps on it, not so much happens. So that's where, so you can hear that's a different quality of energy that comes out under those conditions. Just like in you and me, it's a different quality of ringing we're capable of, depending on how we integrate, tune, and tame this body, or tame the ego associated with this body. We're in a sense clearing out the clogs and the constrictions so that we can ring our true note.
That's a lot different. So what would you suggest to people that are curious about what you mentioned, but who may sense that they have something stuck somewhere in the body? What would you suggest to do to start doing?
Well, it's a journey, and each person has to find the journey that works for them, right? Start where you are, start with what you're interested in and passionate about. If you like yoga, start with yoga. yoga is actually a way to condition the body for meditation, because it opens things up enough that our breath can start to drop and develop. If you're drawn to meditation, meditate. If you sometimes sports and dance are ways that people enter into the body because they want to get good at a sport or lovely in a dance or whatever. And so they become pathways where they work out what's getting stuck and in the way. You know, what's wrong with my golf swing? You know, why am I getting stuck here in the solar plexus? And if they have good teachers or trainers, they get guidance on that. Where I have found Zen training so useful is it's sort of, to me, foundational. It's sort of like meta level training underneath all of this. I say, do anything you want, but I like putting Zen under it because it helps. It's kind of where we're doing nothing in a sense. And because we're doing nothing, we get to witness what's open, what's closed, what's working, what's not working. But as you observe yourself, it's not comfortable. And so we even get to witness that discomfort and figure out what that's telling us. We see that the journey into self is a journey of many layers. And as we get rid of the first layer of stuckness and constriction, oh, darn it, there's another one underneath it. It's just like in the body work. You think, oh, I've opened up that psoas. Oh, thank goodness. And then you realize, oh, I've just started opening up that psoas. There's so much more to go, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, it reminds me when I studied Zen leadership and when we meditate for the first time, the first thing I remember was this discomfort. And I had inside of me, I was like, I need to go out of it. I need to move.
Right.
Because of, and the fact of staying with this discomfort says so much about what we have inside.
Absolutely. The tendency we have, and it really pertains to even how we face every moment of our life, is when we get uncomfortable, we have a habitual response. Some of us want to run away. Some of us want to distract ourselves. Some of us self-medicate. Some of us, we have a characteristic response. And Zen is going to interrupt that response because it's going to say, stay right there. Don't go anywhere. And so something has to shift. And it physiologically, as this has been studied, and we've learned a lot more about the physiological effects of meditation over the years, we started to learn that we're building a superhighway between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. We're learning how to create self-regulation and things like that. But I feel like something at I want to say deeper, fuller, bigger, spiritual level is really happening. We're conditioning ourselves to be fearless, to hang in there, not run away. And how do you think that helps us face into coronavirus or the horrors of racism or a heating up planet? All of those things can make us uncomfortable, can make us want to turn away or find useless, easy solutions or distract ourselves or go back to whatever we were playing or whatever. But if we don't run away from them, we just might find something we can do, right? So, something that the way that signal resonates in us is natural for us to do. And that capacity is what opens up. And in the long run, it's nothing short of manifesting your life purpose. It's nothing short of being fully who you are, which we call purposeful. Again, the mind may be the last to be able to put words or visions to it. It may come through the body first, but that's okay. That sense of, I hear what's going on, I don't run away. Instead, I can enact what is natural for this body and this life and this differentiated character to do. And what comes out is Stephanie in service, or Ginny in service, or you in service of that situation.
And actually, eventually, through the body, something can come up in your brain and you can have the idea of new ideas,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely. The brain or the head, the ego loves to take credit for everything. Like, I just had a great idea. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. So David Bohm the great physicist, David Bohm, had a great line. It said, I creates the world, or the mind creates the world, and then says, I didn't do it. And then conversely, it gets an idea, it resonates with something in the zeitgeist and goes, I had a great idea. We have completely misunderstanding of our agency in these things, where we take credit for what's not ours and don't take responsibility for what is. So it's kind of funny how we reverse things that way. But by just resonating, moving with, vibrating with, to resonate is to vibrate with, to just move with the signals around us, to let ourselves hear what the present moment presents. Not all the looping junk in our mind, what the present moment presents. And then letting that come through us. That nothing can be more natural than that condition. That's what we mean by Zen leadership. That's what we sometimes describe Zen as like a ball on fast moving waters, but that agility to be able to just move with conditions as they are and let them come through your differentiated character as you are, to come into the world as, with your hands and feet.
Absolutely.
What you can do.
Ginny, I have a question for you that comes actually from a poet, French poet, that was trying to give advice for people who have multiple passions or maybe multiple ideas. Taking into account what you've done so far, if you could put a verb that would describe your intention from the beginning up to now, what would that be? If you can describe what your intention with what you do as a verb, what would that be?
A verb as an intention. To be honest, Stephanie, I feel it has changed for me. I would have used a different word in my 20s than in my 30s or 40s, 50s. I'm now in my 60s. It's a different word at different times.
So which one would that be maybe today?
Loving. Connecting. When I talk about that separation that we get with a separate ego, it comes with a lot of self-doubt, that sense of separation, because that little self is never good enough. My little self is never good enough. I'm never worth it enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not wise enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. There's all those enoughs that we look at in Zen leaders, especially Zen leader 2, where because they trigger fears. And I think a lot of my early life ambitions, including being an astronaut, were driven around a sense of, how can I do enough? How can I be enough? How can I be worthy? How can I, right? And that same kind of need, I think, fuels a lot of ambitious or high need achievers, as they're called, I think that really, but I think underlying all of it is this hunger for wholeness, for love, for connection, for that unity that is us at our best.
Great. Well, I could talk a long time with you and ask you a lot of questions, but coming to a close, what would you wish for people to get through maybe your book, through Resonate? What is your wish behind sharing your knowledge?
But the wish behind the book and even the setup of the book is that people have a better understanding of first how fundamental resonance is to how everything happens, and that they see their part in it. They understand themselves as a resonating instrument, how they can be more resonant, more true to themselves that way, and then how to apply it in their world, in their relationships, in their teams or families, in their companies, in their systems, in their society, how they can go from relationships to big change as a more resonant instrument. So it relates to the vision you asked me about earlier,
yes.
But how it is that we can bring ourselves fully to it and help shape this time. That's my hope for Resonate. I hope it helps every person who reads it and enables them to help others. Right? By how they can work beyond fear, work with this sense of connectedness, true to themselves and true to the bigger picture. So that book will come out this fall, October 13th, Resonate does. It's available for pre-order sooner than that. And there's been a whole publisher campaign, pre-order campaign, I think you helped us with, that we ran last August. So there's an online site on publishizer.com/resonate where people can get updates on the book. There's also resonatethebook.com website is a place where people can get updates on it. But I hope that that people find it both useful in themselves and out of themselves, through themselves.
Absolutely. Oh, lovely. And eventually they might, as me, found a lot of synchronicities, and then suddenly see the world, that a lot of things happen in the world through frequencies that I wasn't aware of. Like, I think one day I shared with you, like in the French crops are healed through frequencies. Right. Or even the corals, that they find out that through frequencies they enable the coral to grow again. So
that's right. There's a lot of things. In fact, one of the therapies I came across in this past year was a repatterning group that works with frequencies as a therapeutic method with people, including certain sound frequencies, light frequencies, that you hit a right frequency to create healing. So it's the power of energy to change matter is beyond question. We don't always have a good understanding of that because it takes a certain kind of intuition or sensing to pick up on that. But can we train ourselves? Absolutely. And it's a worthy journey. Just like some people will have a certain attunement to sound, and they want it's natural for them to become musicians or conductors or something. Or some people have an attunement to light and the way light works, and being a graphic artist or an abstract artist is their calling, right? And some people have an attunement to other energies in the human body and how to work with that. So finding those places where we might have a natural inclination and capability is part of the opening up that's available to us to find how the energy that is can ring this bell.
Thank you very much, Ginny. So before you leave, I have a small virtual gift for you, as I cannot send it to you, but
yeah.
So yesterday I was talking by chance, or let's put it by chance, with the Hartman Institute.
Ah, yes.
And with Roland McCarthy. And I found out by researching that he has this great talk on actually how we are all connected with the coherence, with the heart frequencies and the heartbeats and the global field of the world. So I thought it would be interesting.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will enjoy that.
So thank you very much, Ginny, for your time, and looking forward to see you very soon.
Yes, thank you. Take care, and thank you for doing this, Stephanie.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a review and subscribe to the podcast if you're listening, or to the channel if you're watching, and share it to your friends and colleagues that are curious by nature. Thank you. And remember, it's all connected and we might not even know it. See you very soon.